Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Ms. Sabta Aryanika MPD, as a lecturer in charge of the seminar course in language teaching. Let me introduce myself. My name is Intan Permata Sari. Our presentation about my proposal thesis, the title is The Effectiveness of Using Electronic Forms to Improve Student Pronunciation Mastery at the 11th grade of MA Alida Jaman Trasaki in the academic year of 2021-2022. Okay, the first is background of the problem. Language is very important in human life. Language is an essential aspect in human life. It is means of communication that people use to ask for and give information. Language is about communication after all, and perhaps that is why philosophies and techniques for learning language seem to develop and change in tune with the societies which give rise to them. Indonesia is the country where English is positioned as a foreign language. Considering the importance of English, Indonesian government has decided to put English as one of the subjects which is taught in the school from kindergarten and until university level. Okay, there are 4 skills that should be taught in English, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing. In order to measure the ability of each language skill, the teacher requires the students to perform different ability. For example, to know about the students' achievement of their speaking skills, the teacher usually asks the students to communicate by using English in the class. In the case of reading aloud, the teacher usually asks the students to read a text to know how far the student's mastery of their pronunciation ability. Reading poetry is specific abilities which help the reader put what they are thinking into words in a meaningful form and to mentally interact with the message. Pronunciation is defined as the way in which a language is spoken. Readers gain creativity when they can read their own ideas, not copying what has already been oral so that they can be read and understood. However, the students don't know about the M because they just read several words without being aware of the pronunciation. The teacher sometimes gets confused of how to help the students to develop this skill. It seems that the teacher pays little attention to the teaching of reading, especially in the poetry technique. As a result, many students are not able to read because sometimes teachers can't teach well about poetry lesson or don't know about how to correct the student's pronunciation. In this research, the writer used poetry reading practice. In this research, the writer used poetry reading. A poetry reading is a performance of poetry, normally given on a small stage in a cafe or bookstore. Although poetry reading given by notable poets frequently are booked into larger venues to accommodate crowds. The researcher focused on students' pronunciation by using poetry reading practice. The appropriate technique which was used by the writer is poetry reading because poetry reading makes the students are able to learn each other. Poetry reading to give specific and deep comments on their pronunciation. Poetry reading has also been found to be useful to those who provide critiques. helping students to develop pronunciation and their vocabulary and become better able to judge their own reading. This research was conducted in MA Al-Hidayah Jamal Tasoki. In this case, the writer used one class in teaching pronunciation. The researcher used putri reading as technique in helping the students to have better in their pronunciation. The difference between the current study and previous research lies in the subject of the previous study at SMP Negeri 53 Palembang and the subject of the study at MA Al-Hidayah Jamal Taskoki. In addition, the previous research was only an exercise in reading footer and this study was an electronic medium for practice. The similarity between previous research and this research is in data collection, namely providing pre-test, treatment, and also post-test. Okay, the next slide is identification of the problem. Observing students' pronunciation is very necessary because pronunciation itself is one of the basic components that is quite important. For speaking, especially the user of English language have responsibility to pronounce the words well, including for the second language learners. English students at these MA schools still have problems with pronunciation due to different sources. Most teachers in senior high school level notice students' pronunciation well. Teacher needs to change their mother tongue from beginning, so the students will easy to develop on next. Besides that, media in teaching English pronunciation don't interest for students. The use of media in teaching and learning process is must in order to run the reading and learning process effectively. Media helps teachers in explaining something to their students. Most English electronic form provide the user with the possibility to hear the pronunciation of the word they look up and make this a pleasant and painless possibility. English electronic form is extremely useful to improve English pronunciation. The reason why the researcher is interested in conducting the research because the researcher wants to know the student's pronunciation. The researcher also analyzes the function of English electronic form as media is effective to make the students pronounce some word properly. Okay, the next is limitation of the study. The researcher wants to limit the scope of the study on the student's pronunciation. Correct pronunciation is needed when students speak. Different pronunciation or incorrect pronunciation can change the meaning of a word. Researchers limit the object of research only to students of class 11 MAA. Al-Hidayah Jaman Oki, academic year 2021-2022. Researchers only focus on increasing students' pronunciation capabilities using this English electronic putri. Okay, the next is formulation of the problem. The problems that will be analyzed by the writer are formulated in the following questions. How is the effectiveness of electronic putri in teaching English to improve students' mastery of pronunciation in the 11th grade of MA Al-Hidayah Jaman Oki? Okay, the next is objective of the study. The objectives of the study are the following, namely to describe the effectiveness of electronic putri in teaching English and then to improve students' pronunciation mastery in the 11th grade of MA Al-Hidayah Jaman Oki. The next slide is significance of the study. The significance of the study is that as follows for the students. It is expected that the result of the study can give some advantage for the students. They will know their errors in pronunciation, therefore they can understand them. In addition, the students can increase their understanding in pronunciation. And the second is for the teacher. It is expected that the result of this study can help English teachers who teach at MA Al Hidayah Jaman Oki to teach pronunciation in different way in order to overcome the students' errors in pronunciation English words. In addition, teachers can improve students' skill in pronunciation. And last for the research. For the researcher, it is also expected that the result of this study, the teacher's strategy to overcome students' errors in pronunciation in teaching learning process will give the researcher input about the technique that can improve students' mastering in pronunciation. Okay, the next slide is research methodology. This research is an experimental research. In this study, students participate in one group and only one class was taken as the subject group. It was conducted based on the one group protest, pre-test, post-test design in this study. Here, the researcher only has one class and students do a pre-test, treatment, and a post-test. This research is divided into three parts. The first is the pre-test, the second is the treatment, and the third is the post-test, and will be conducted of MA Al Hidayah Jaman Oki. Researchers used two kinds of variables in this study, namely the independent variable and dependent variable. The population of this study were students of class 11 academic year 2021-2022. There are 6 classes in class 11 with a total of 187 students. In this study, the researcher took a sample because the number of respondents was more than 100. In this study, the researcher took one class, namely 11th EPS1. The number of samples in this study was 31 students. In taking the sample, the researcher used purposive sampling. Due to limitation of manpower, time, and funds, so that they could not take a larger sample. This is why the researcher chose this purpose of sampling is something based on a specific purpose by considering the time used and also other factors. The instrument of data collection in this study to determine students' pronunciation skill was a task in the form of electronic portrait. Several kinds of instruments are tests, questionnaires, interview, observation, and rating scales. The instrument that the researcher uses is a test. Researchers use pre-test and post-test to obtain data in this study. Okay, the next slide is there are 5 steps taken by researchers. The first is preparing the research instrument. Researchers make instrument first before giving pre-test and post-test to facilitate researchers in conducting research. The second is giving pre-test. The use of pre-test is to determine the initial state of the students of the subject with regard to some particular variables. The researcher hopes this pre-test can increase students' pronunciation ability. And the next, giving treatment. The treatment in the class is about how to teach English pronunciation using electronic form. And the last, giving post-test. After conducting the treatment, the students must do the post-test. Post-test is used to measure the students' achievement after they got the treatment, and last taking an evaluation. Then the researcher can evaluate the assessments that are given to the students. The researcher can accumulate the result of pre-test and post-test from this process. The researcher can observe whether the use of electronic form is effective or not to increase the students' pronunciation ability. Okay, that's all my explanation about my proposal thesis. Thank you for your attention. And the last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.